Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good day, everyone. How are you today? Well, I hope all of you are fine. Okay. Today we will continue our lessons, and today we will move to a new material. Okay. Let me share my screen first. Okay. Okay. Today we will learn about conditional sentences, or you can also call it if clauses. I think you have heard of this term before. So, what is actually conditional sentences or if clauses? Now, pay attention to the conditional sentences. Sentences. There's an S in there, which means there are more than one sentences, right? Because in conditional sentences, we have two sentences. The first sentences talk about condition, and the the second sentence, talk about the result. Or we usually call it if clause and main clause or result clause. You can also check this material in the Betty Azar's book, okay? In conditional sentences, we have four types of conditional sentences. Now, if you look at the Betty Azar book, there are actually three types of sentences, but this is just for your additional knowledge, which is the type O. In Betty Alzar book, you have type 1, type 2, and type 3. But because I just want to add some additional knowledge for you, I also add the type 0 or type O. Okay, let me introduce you to each types of the conditional sentences. Okay, the first one is type 0. So what is a type 0? Type 0 is refers to a fact, a real condition. The results are always the same. If type 1 refers to a possible future condition, it is true in the present or in the future. The possible condition has a high chance that it will happen in the present or in the future. Type 2 we have untrue in the present or future. So it's impossible, untrue. While in type 3, it's the same with type 2, but the difference is if in type 3 the the untrue or possible or impossible happens in the past, while in the type 2 it happens in the present or in the future, but in type 3 it happens in the past. It happened in the past. Okay, now maybe some of you still confused about these types. Okay, don't worry, because we will talk about this more detail later on. Now the first type that we will discuss is about type 0 or type O. As I have mentioned before, type 0 or type O refers to a real fact, a real condition, and the result is always the same. Now what I mean by this is in these examples. Now I have two examples here. The first one, if the wind blows, the trees move. If we burn paper, it becomes ash. Now, if you now these two examples is a fact, is a general truth. The result is always the same. Okay, if the wind blows, the trees move. Yes, it's obvious. Whenever the wind blows, the trees move. Everything moves. Everything that is alive moves. And if we burn paper, it becomes ash. Of course, it always becomes ash. It never becomes something else. It never become a liquid or an air or something else. It always become an ash. So it's a fact, a general truth. And the result is always the same. If the wind blows, the trees always move. And if we burn the paper, the paper will becomes ash. The paper will becomes ash. Whenever you burn a paper, it will become ash, definitely become ash. Now, as you can see from the examples here, there are red color and blue color. Now, what I mean by blue color and red color here refers to the blue color refers to the if clause that I have mentioned in the beginning of in the beginning of the class. I have mentioned that there are two sentences or two clauses, if clause and main clause or result clause. Now the blue clause indicates the if clause, or the red clause, the red color clause indicates the main clause or result clause. So if the wind blows is the if clause, and the trees move is the main clause. And here is the structure. As you can see here from the structure, we have if plus simple present for the if clause and simple present for the main clause. I think it's pretty clear, yeah. Now can you switch between the position between if clause and main clause? For example, you want the main clause in the left side and you want the if clause in the right side. Can you do that? Yes, you absolutely can do that. As you can see here, I put the main clause in the if clause position, and I also put the if clause position in the main clause. The trees move if the wind blows. The only difference is in the comma, is in the writing. So when you write the main clause first and then if clause, you don't need to add the comma. But if you write the if clause and then main clause, you have to add the comma, just like in the first example. If the wind blows, comma, the trees move. But if you want to write the main clause first, the trees move if the wind blows. Okay, I think so far so good, yeah? Because the type O is not really that hard. Now we move to the type 1. What is type 1? I have mentioned before, type 1 is a possible future condition. It also has a high chance it will happen, or it's also true in the present or in the future. Now take a look at these examples. If we don't leave soon, we will miss out the train. If it rains, I will stay at home. Now, maybe you realize right now when you saw these two examples, it actually refers to a specific condition or a specific situation. For example, maybe you in the first example, if we don't leave soon, we will miss out the train. For example, maybe you woke up late and you want to go to work, and your friends pick you up, and he says to you that if we don't leave soon, we will miss out the train. And for the second example, if it rains, I will stay at home. For example, your friend invite you to a party, and then you say, sure, I will go, but if it rains, I will stay at home. Okay, so it indicates that the type 1 is actually usually refers to a specific situation or condition. And as you can see from the example, we have the structure if plus simple present for the if clause, and will plus infinitive or the verb 1 for the main clause. So if we don't leave soon, for example, in the first example, if we don't leave soon is obviously the if clause, if plus simple present, and we will miss out the train is the main clause, will plus the infinitive. Okay, now can you do the same thing with the type O, where you want to switch the main clause to with the if clause, and the if clause switch the position between the main clause and the if clause? Can you do that in this type 1? Absolutely yes. For example, in the first example, you can say that we will miss out the train if we don't leave soon, or I will stay at home if it rains. Okay, don't forget to not add the comma in the writing if you write the main clause first and the if clause. Okay, I think this is also clear. Yeah. When we move to the type 2, what is type 2? What is type 2 refers to unreal condition or unreal result, and it's untrue in the present or in the future. For example, I won the lottery. If I won the lottery, I would go to a trip. If I had enough time, I would watch the movie now. Now, as you can see, the if clause here uses the past tense. If I won the lottery, I would go to a trip. The fact is, I don't win the lottery. Therefore, I don't go to a trip. Now, the second example, if I had enough time, I would watch the movie now. But the truth, the fact is, I don't have enough time. Therefore, I don't watch the movie now. As you can see, also from the structure, we have if plus simple past, and for the if clause, if I won the lottery is if plus simple past, if I had enough time, if plus simple past, and for the main clause or the result clause, we have would plus infinitive. I would go to a trip is would plus infinitive, or I would go to watch the movie now, would plus infinitive. You can also change would into might or could. I might go to a trip. I could go to a trip. It's okay. And the same rule when you want to switch the position between if clause and when clause also apply in this type too. For example, I would go to a trip if I won the lottery. I would watch the movie now if I had enough time. Okay. Now the last type, we have type 3. Type 3 is the same. It's actually same with the type 2, but the difference is type 3 happened in the past, where type 2 happens in the present or in the future. For example, if the weather had been warm, we would have gone to the beach. If I had studied harder, I would have passed the test. Sorry. Now, if the weather had been warm, we would have gone to the beach. The fact is, did the weather warm? No, the weather is not good. Maybe it can be rainy, maybe it can be cloudy, and therefore we didn't go to the beach. And the second example, if I had studied harder, I would have passed the test. The fact is, I didn't study harder, therefore I didn't pass the test. As you can see from the two examples, it it happens in the past. Both of the if clause and the main clause happen in the past. Where in the type 2, if clause happen in the if clause happen in the past, but the main clause happen in the future or in the present. While in the type 3, both if clause and the main clause happened in the past. Now from the structure, we have if plus past perfect. For the if clause, if the weather had been warm, if I had studied harder, is the if plus past perfect. And for the main clause or the result clause, would have plus past participle. Like we would have gone to the beach, I would have passed the test. Would have plus past participle on the verb 3. Okay, so far so good, yeah? I think. Okay, now we move to. Ta-da! We will move to the exercises. Now I have 5 tasks. I have 5 sentences here that I want you to choose in the red color. I want to choose. There are 3 options, and I want to choose which one is the appropriate for each sentence. Okay. You can pause the video. I will give you 5 minutes, and you can start now. Now let's discuss the exercises. Now, the first sentence. If it rains, the street blah 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 wet. Now, if you want to answer these questions, you have to identify first which type the sentence belongs to. Now, because we are looking for the main clause here, let's take a look at the if clause. If it rains, which means the structure is if plus simple present. Now, we have discussed the for structure before, and now the question is, if plus simple present is a structure that refers to which type? Do you know the answer? Yes. If plus simple present refers to the type O or type 0. What is the structure for the type 0? If plus simple present for the if clause, and simple present for the main clause. Now, let's take a look at the first example here. Let's take a look at the first sentence here. If it rains, if plus simple present, the street blah 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 wet. Because we already know that the first sentence is a type 0, that we can easily choose that the answer will be get, which is simple present, which means the answer for number 1 is if it rains the street get wet. Okay, now let's move to the second sentence. If I had time, I blah 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 shopping with you. Now if I had time here, which means that if plus had time, oh yes, it refers to the simple past. Now if we have the if clauses, the structure is if plus simple past, which means that this type refers to, which means that this I'm sorry, which means that this sentence, if I had time, if plus simple past refers to which type? Yes, it refers to type 2, which the structure is if plus simple past for the if clause, and would plus infinitive or verb 1 for the main clause or the result clause. Now, since we already know the structure, we can easily answer that if I had time, I would go shopping with you, because the structure is if clause is if plus simple past, and the main clause is would plus infinitive or the verb 1. So the answer is if I had time, I would go shopping with you. Okay, let's move to the third sentence. If they blah 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 me, I wouldn't have said no. Now, the question here is in the if clause. Is in the if clause. Now we take a look at the main clause or the result clause. I wouldn't have said no. I wouldn't have said no, which means that the main clause has a structure which has a structure would plus past participle, because because the would have plus past participle, because here would have we have past participle on the verb 3, which means that this third sentence refers to the type 3, which the structure is if plus past perfect for the if clause, and for the main clause is would have plus past participle or the verb t or the verb 3, which now we can answer that if they had invited me, I wouldn't have said no. So the answer is if they had invited me, I wouldn't have said no. Okay, let's move to the fourth sentence. I would have told you if I blah 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 her. Now as you can see here, the main clause comes first, and then the if clause comes later. Now I would have told you. I would have told you. This is the main clause, which means that would have plus past participle, which also refers to the type 3, which means that the answer is I would have told you if I had seen her, because the main clause for the type 3 is would have plus past participle, and the if clause is if plus past perfect, which means the answer would be if I would have told you if I had seen her. Okay, the last sentence. If I blah 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 enough money, I will buy a new car. I will buy a new car. You take a look at this main clause. I will buy a new car, which means that would plus simple present, which means that this sentence refers to the second time. Now, what is the structure for the second time? For the main clause, we have will plus simple present, and for the if clause, we have if plus simple past, which means the answer is if I had enough money, I would buy a new car. Did you get all of them right? Or maybe you made a mistake. That's okay, because making a mistake is also a process of learning. Now time is up, and I hope you can learn something from today's meeting. Okay, I'll see you again, and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.